Good morning, guys. It's probably about 10:15 here this morning. It's a cold January morning. I think we got a little bit of a dusting of snow and ice last night, unusual for this region. Yesterday was Shabbat, and I this last week, I've been pondering a particular chapter in Scripture that I want to spend some time going through with you. Let's take a look at this. But I'm doing this partially because in the last week, there's been a pretty spirited discussion with at least one of the regular members of our channel and a real different opinion of some of the things that the prophets have to say. And so I've spent more time pondering this particular chapter, and I want to walk us through it and demonstrate that we cannot ignore what Yah says in his word. Doing so will be detrimental to our health. I'm telling you, this is very bad not to get this right. So let's get ready to roll, and we are going to take a look at Ezekiel chapter 20. So I have got my hard copy laying down here in front of me, but I think it's important that you be able to see in front of you the same thing that I'm seeing textually. And so I'm going to shift this. We're going to start in Matthew chapter 5. Again, we've got to go back always to the words of Yeshua. And over and over, I bring this passage up right here and people want to go, oh, no, that's not really what he was saying, okay? He said something different. Paul overrides this. If you think Paul overrides the Messiah, you got another thing coming. That's the first thing I'll say. But Yeshua says, do not think that I came to abolish the law or the prophets. And this is very important because we are going to talk about the prophets. He said, I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill. And many understand fulfill here to mean abolish, because then they'll proceed to say, see, it's fulfilled, it's done away with. No. Fulfill can't mean abolish, abrogate, annul, destroy, do away with, or any of those things. He just said, I did not. He said, do not even think that I came to do these things. See, most Christians, what they do is they read this and they say, do not think. And then they move on to the next passage because they think they don't have to think. And I know that sounds condescending and it sounds maybe arrogant. It's not. That's what Christianity does. They say they don't, but that's what they do. But Yeshua said, do not think that I came to abolish the law or the prophets. I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill. And fulfill means to bring to the full, to display fully. And yes, there are some things that he displayed fully, and there are lots of other things that he said. You see that right there that they said? I need to point this direction. My camera's backwards, right? You see that right there that they said, and we're going to talk about Ezekiel 20. That's going to happen. And it's going to happen exactly the way that it's written. And so we're going to talk about this, okay? But I want to continue in this passage because it's more than just 5:17. These multiple verses here have to go together. I may even touch on 20 because I don't normally do that. But it says, for truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not the smallest letter or stroke shall pass from the law until all is accomplished. I would argue that he means here the law and the prophets. But even if it just says the law, okay, great. In the law, Deuteronomy chapter 30 particularly, but also in Leviticus chapter 25, I'm pretty sure it is, he's very specific. The word is very specific that he is going to bring Israel back to the land. And by that, he doesn't mean the tribe of Judah and or some Leviim Levites and some from Benjamin. He means all of Israel, and we're going to see that in spades in this chapter today. He's going to bring them back, and we've talked about this before. I'm pretty sure I've got a whole video just on Deuteronomy chapter 30, but if I don't, I'm going to. Okay, because Christendom ignores entire chapters of. I think they ignore whole books of the prophets. They say, "Oh, this is the word of God. This is all of his word. I believe every word of it," but that doesn't really matter anymore because that part is done away with. And then they'll list chapter after chapter after chapter and whole books and entire prophets. It's criminal is what it is. It's wicked shepherds and sheep that don't do their due diligence. So we're going to look at Ezekiel 20 today, but he says, truly, until heaven and earth pass away, not the smallest letter or stroke, not even a serif, a little decorative mark on the letter. It's not going away. Okay? Every bit of it still stands. He says, whoever then annuls one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever keeps and teaches, he shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Christendom, they don't annul least of the commandments. They annul some of the most important commandments. They ignore Passover. They annul Shabbat. These are things that Yahweh says are death penalty issues. Death penalty issues. But no, Christendom, that's done away with. We don't have to do that anymore. That's been annulled. Bunch of liars they are. That's really what it is. That's really what it is. But here, let's look just one more verse, because everybody wants to say, oh, yeah, but you've got to be more perfect than the Pharisees. That's why we need Jesus, and we don't need anything else. All we can do is we trust in him, and then we don't have to do any of this stuff. Isn't that great? Freedom. It's sad. It's really sad. But it says, for I say to you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. The scribes and Pharisees were righteous. They had righteousness. Yeshua despised and constantly addressed their additions to the Torah with their own man-made laws. You got to wash your hands a certain way before you eat, otherwise the food is made unclean. And he's going, no, it's not. It's not what that's a tradition. It's not what goes into the mouth. It's what's in the heart. And he's talking about food there. He's not talking about pork. He's not talking about shellfish. He's not talking about the other rot that he calls an abomination in Leviticus 11, because that's part of the law that will not be done away with. And the rest of the New Testament supports this if you read it correctly. And I know I've already set a whole lot of people's hair on fire, and good. You need to deal with the truth. You really do. You need to deal with the truth. But here you go. Your righteousness, the righteousness of Messiah, is the righteousness that we find in the Torah. Where we have failings, we have forgiveness, but we're called to walk according to his commandments, to keep his commandments. He's the one who stood on Mount Sinai and gave the commandments to Moses. Yeshua, the Messiah. I believe that, Christendom will tell you that the angel of the Lord is a Christophany. Go look it up. Go look up the word Christophany, okay? And they will tell you, every time the angel of the Lord shows up in the Old Testament, that is a Christophany. It's a pre-incarnate Yeshua who is standing there. Notice he's the one that stood in the burning bush. Exodus chapter 3, verse 2. Notice he's the one that said, I am Yahweh, the Elohim of your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov. I am. Which is why later on he could say, before Abraham was, I am. This is going to be a long video. I can tell you that already. Buckle up, because this is important. Yeshua is also the one that in Judges chapter 2 comes down from Gilgal to Bochim, and he says, you have not obeyed me. You have not kept my covenant that I made with your fathers. Therefore, I will not drive out the inhabitants of the land. And from there on, they called it a place of weepings, Bochim. The angel of the Lord right there, Yeshua. He's the same one that comes and he castigates the Pharisees and the scribes for adding to and taking away from the Torah. He gives the same message all of the prophets gave. Greater than the prophets, yes, but he gives the same message. Go back to the Torah. Go back to the Torah. And still, we don't go back. We make excuses for why it doesn't apply to us today. Well, I'm telling you, there are a whole lot of pastors that are going to be sitting in the cheap seats. And there are a whole lot of Christians that are going to be shut out of the best parts of the kingdom because they refuse obedience. But let's take a look. We need to go to Ezekiel chapter 20. Because Ezekiel chapter 20 is one of those chapters that you just can't escape. Once you see it, you can't escape it. All right, I want to start by saying this. I hate these little headlines right here because they poison the well in terms of what the text says. And sometimes they can be true. This one's mildly true. Okay, but they poison the well on what the text actually says because we read it and we read it with the assumption that their heading is correct and inspired, just like the word is. But I'm telling you, chapter divisions, verse divisions, the phrases you have written at the top, they're not inspired. They're man-made. They're added for convenience sake, and they can be convenient if you understand how to use them properly. Now, this chapter division is in a good place because it starts with a new thought. And here's what it says. Now, in the 7th year, in the 5th of the 10th of the month, on the 10th of the month, certain of the elders of Israel came to inquire of Yahweh and sat before me. This is Ezekiel speaking. And so elders of Israel come to inquire of him. He is not in the land at this point, I don't think. I'm pretty sure. Now, Ezekiel's ministry was to the house of Israel. It was not primarily a ministry to the house of Judah, though he periodically speaks of the house of Judah. At the time of Ezekiel's ministry, the house of Israel, the northern kingdom, the 10, quote, lost tribes, had already been shipped out of the land. They were gone, had been gone for more than 120, 125, 130 years. The Assyrians took them and scattered them all over the place. The way that the Assyrians would keep a people subjugated is by dividing them and breaking up families and breaking up clans and breaking up tribes and sending them all these different places. Kind of the way Russia handled Russia when it started conquering all of the provinces of Russia, and then the peoples in some of the Eastern Bloc nations, they would take people groups and move them in order to prevent them from being able to rise up. That's what Assyria did. It's not what Babylon did. Babylon took them and settled them wholesale in large groups, and that's the mercy of the Most High for the house of Judah, and then eventually sent them back to the land according to the prophecies. Oh, the prophets are true. In fact, to the day, some of those things, the prophets are true. So right here we have Ezekiel the prophet, and the elders come to ask of him. They come to inquire of him. And this is what happens. The word of Yahweh came to me saying, Son of man, speak to the elders of Israel and say to them, thus says Adonai Yahweh. The text actually says Yahweh, Yahweh. Yod-He-Vav-He, Yod-He-Vav-He. It's in there twice. And it's one of the unusual things about Ezekiel, though I think maybe Isaiah does this a couple times. But Ezekiel often uses this double language, Yahweh, Yahweh. Yahweh, Yahweh came to me. Yahweh's the one who sent me. Is it Yahweh Yeshua? That's a good question, right? He does say at times that it's the word of the Lord, which that's a whole different and fun study, where the word of the Lord, according to the Aramaic Targumim, is the word of the Lord. And in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was made flesh, and the Word was with God, the Word was God. Yes, yes, yes. That's exactly where John gets the idea. It's a whole different study. I've done a video on that, the Word of the Lord, the Memra de Yah. So here we go. Son of man, speak to the elders of Israel and say, thus says Yahweh Yahweh, do you come to inquire of me? As I live, declares Yahweh, Adonai Yahweh, I will not be inquired of by you. He's like, who do you think you are to come and trample my courts? Y'all are some nasty people, and you're disobedient, and you're stiff-necked as hell. Go in there. And you want to come ask me? He's incensed. He says, will you judge them? Speaking to Ezekiel, he says, will you judge them? Will you judge them, son of man? Make them know the abominations of their fathers, right? The abominations of their fathers. As we talk through this, we're also going to discuss the abominations of our fathers. Our fathers have committed great abominations. Many of you who watch my channel, you've come out of that. Some of you have not yet, and you're scratching your head and trying to figure out what the heck is wrong with this guy. My own family thinks I'm a kook. But you know what? I know what the word says, and I know what the word says over and over and over again. I'm seminary trained. I spent time in the pulpit, and I can tell you the church is full of false doctrines and abominations, full of it. But they worship Jesus, full of it. We'll talk about some of these as we go. Will you judge them? Will you judge them, son of man? Make them know the abominations of their fathers, and say to them, thus says Adonai Yahweh, or the Lord God, on the day when I chose Israel and swore to the descendants of the house of Jacob and made myself known to them in the land of Egypt. Mitzrayim is the Hebrew I will use. When I swore to them, saying, I am Yahweh your Elohim, on that day I swore to them to bring them out from the land of Mitzrayim into a land that I had selected or spied out for them, flowing with milk and honey, which is the glory of all the lands. Tell you something. We're going to read the first half of this chapter, the first 27 or 30 verses of this chapter. We're going to read history. He's going to tell us what he did, what they did, what he should have done, or what he held himself back from doing. He's going to be very literal. And here's the problem. Christendom, they'll read that, all the literal, going, oh, yeah, that's exactly what happened. And then as soon as it gets prophetic, they flip the script and they say, oh, that's all spiritualized. We're not really talking about the house of Israel anymore. The first part of the chapter talks about the house of Israel. The last part doesn't talk about the house of Israel. Now it's talking about somebody else. We have to be consistent in our hermeneutic. Either this whole chapter is about the house of Israel, or this whole chapter is not about the house of Israel. You be the judge. I'll let you be the judge as we go through this. But I want you to notice that the first half of this is verifiable historical facts supported in spades through the Torah and through the prophets and the history books. It's all there. You can go read all you want in the Old Testament. No, Old Testament. It's not the Old Testament. There's only one. That's false. It's another good Christian lie. Nowhere ever are we told to separate the scriptures into these two different categories. I know you'll say the new covenant, but you fail to understand that the new covenant is actually in the Tanakh. Jeremiah gives it to us in a passage about the restoration of Israel, and he's very specific that it will write Torah on our hearts. Go read it. Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 31 through 34. Go read it. Christendom reads that, and then they change the meaning of every word in that new covenant. I don't think there's anything left. It's a hollow document that they clean out and they fill with all their filth. But it's holy. I'm going to get fired up today. It makes me ill. Yahweh says, I'm gonna bring them out from the land of Mitzrayim into a land that I selected, which is flowing with milk and honey. I said to them, cast away each one of you the detestable things of his eyes, and do not defile yourself with the idols of Egypt. I am Yahweh your Elohim. He told them very specifically. And he dealt with them in the wilderness. And what does it tell us in Amos? It says that they took with them the tabernacle of Romphah. They literally had Molech with them in the wilderness, and his star, and whatever that is. Some define that as actually being a six-pointed star. They literally had that with them in the wilderness and carried it along with them. And it was the tabernacle outside of the camp. It says, but they rebelled against me and were not willing to listen to me. They did not cast away the detestable things of their eyes, nor did they forsake the idols of Mitzrayim. Then I resolved to pour out my wrath on them to accomplish my anger against them in the midst of the land of Mitzrayim. He resolved to do this before they ever left Egypt. Now, Ezekiel chapter 23 tells us that he already regarded the house of Israel and the house of Judah as two brides, daughters of one mother who bore him sons and daughters, regarded them as his brides before they left Egypt. Ezekiel 23. You can go see that. But he was already dealing with them and their abominations and their sinfulness in Egypt before they left. He said, but I acted for the sake of my name, that it should not be profaned in the sight of the nations among whom they lived, in whose sight I made myself known to them by bringing them out of the land of Mitzrayim. Now, just a little editorial note here. Anytime a word is in italics, it's not in the Hebrew. Okay, so a lot of times translators will add a word for clarity's sake, and sometimes that's good to read, and other times you need to look at that word and go, that doesn't fit the context correctly. Pay attention anytime, okay? And I'll point those out as we come along. Sometimes you'll find that I just read over them. I skip the word because it doesn't add to the context. We don't want to color or filter or alter our understanding of what that word says. But Yahweh says, I acted for the sake of my name. And you're going to see this multiple times in this chapter. You see it all over the place in Scripture. And over, anytime for my name's sake comes up, you'd better be paying really close attention, because when he says, my name is hanging on this, you can count on this, because that's what my name says, right? I guarantee you. When he does that, that's what you need to be understanding. So I took them out of Mitzrayim and brought them into the wilderness. Notice something else here. We're going to see this again in just a second. But he says he didn't want to profane his name in the sight of the nations. So he didn't want to do it in Egypt, because then they would go, see, Yah's people, he couldn't handle them, so he destroyed them. He isn't a very good God, is he? But it happens again in Mitzrayim, or in the wilderness. We're going to see that in this passage right here, because when he talks about this, later in this passage, we can be reminded of where he was ready to destroy the people of the wilderness. And Moses got between him and the people. And he says, whoa, 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 whoa. Do you realize what the nations are going to say when you destroy your people? They are going to absolutely have a heyday with this. Don't do it. Destroy me. Moses, a good mediator, right? Just like the Messiah, only he was human, unlike the Messiah. So I took them out of Mitzrayim and brought them into the wilderness. I'm going to take them into a private space so I can discipline them. That's what he did. He said, I'm going to take them to a private space so I can discipline them, right? We don't need to do this publicly. And this is good. We don't discipline our children, shouldn't discipline our children, certainly in some ways, not publicly. You need to make sure you've got a private space for that, right? Okay. And he says, I gave them my statutes and informed them of my ordinances by which if a man observes them, he will live. Christendom does not understand this. Even Paul says that if you keep the law, you'll live. Paul says that. Yeshua says that. What must I do to inherit eternal life? He says, keep the commandments. He says, and the rich man says, I've done all that. And Yeshua says, have you done this one? And it says he went away sad because he had many things. Here's the point. The law brings life. Obedience brings life. Disobedience brings death. Disobedience brings curses. It is only when we disobey that we need a Messiah. We need the shed blood. However, receiving the shed blood does not then give us the freedom to go disobey some more. Christendom gets this terribly wrong. Oh, we don't have to do that anymore. We got Jesus. No, if you go on sinning willfully, there no longer remains a sacrifice. That's what it says. Right? But Paul, and I want to give you the reference because some of y'all are going to be like, no, Paul never said that. Oh, yes, he did. He absolutely said that. He says, now that no one is justified by the law before God is evident, for the righteous man shall live by faith. However, the law is not of faith. On the contrary, he who practices them shall live by them. Galatians chapter 3, verses 11 and 12. And then he goes on and he's very specific. He said, Messiah redeemed us from the curse of the law. He didn't redeem us from the law. He redeemed us from the curse of the law. Different topic for a different day. But you guys who want to run to Galatians and say, oh, but see, we don't have to do that anymore. The law is death. It's a ministry of death. That's not what God said. So however you understand Paul, if it contradicts what God said, you're a liar. Period. I can't even hear what you say because what he says thunders. What you say whispers. He says it brings life. And he says it over and over. Almost every book of the Old Testament in one place or another says something to the effect that the law brings life. Obedience brings life. And Deuteronomy 30 tells us it's not too difficult. It's not too hard. So when people say, oh, that's a burden, God says you're a liar. And in Psalms, it says the law is liberty. James the Apostle says the perfect law of liberty. So when you guys say, oh, that's bondage, you're a liar. You're a liar. Because you contradict the words of the Most High and you contradict the words of the apostles. By your traditions, you nullify the commandments of God. Matthew chapter 15, I think. But Yahweh continues. Also, I gave them my Shabbats to be a sign between me and them, that they might know I am Yahweh who sanctifies them. You know, Exodus chapter 32. It's Exodus chapter 32, verse 12 or 16. Let me find this for you, and I'm going to tell you right quick. It says, this is the sign between you and me, that I am Yahweh who sanctifies you. Y'all want to know whether or not you're sanctified by the Most High? You keep his commandments. It is, sorry, it's not 32. Exodus, what is it? Exodus 31. Exodus 31, verse 17. And actually, backing up, there's a larger passage that starts at verse 12, but I want to give you 16 and 17. So Bnei Israel, the sons of Israel, shall observe the Shabbat, to celebrate the Shabbat throughout their generations as a perpetual, as a forever, as an olam covenant. It is a sign between me and the sons of Israel forever. For in 6 days Yahweh made heaven and earth, but on the seventh day he ceased from it and was refreshed. Oh, he calls into account the creation story and him resting on this. So all of creation is subject to the Shabbat. Yeah, because that's exactly what we see in Isaiah chapter 66 at the end of everything. Prophecy that's not yet fulfilled. Future prophecy. Isaiah 66 verses, that's going to be verse 22 to 24, specifically the Shabbat. And before that, 15 through 17 tells us that you'll be judged for eating swine's flesh and the mouse and other abominations. Swine, mice, and abominations all in one sentence. And it says all flesh, kol basar, everybody, not just Israel. Everybody. Consider yourself a Gentile. You will be judged for eating swine. Period. It's written right there in the scriptures. I don't care what you think Peter saw. You're wrong. Acts chapter 10, get down to verse 28. It says, God has shown me not to call any man unclean. He says nothing about food. Pig has never been food. Never been food. And it will never be food. It's not. It's a garbage can used for cleaning up the earth. Another sidetrack. But here's the point. I gave them my Shabbats. Okay. This is not the Jewish Shabbat or Israel's Sabbath. Yahweh says it's my Shabbat. The seventh day is his Shabbat. Now I know some of y'all are going to say, yeah, but we don't know which day is the seventh day. We can't possibly know that, but I worship on the first day of the week. And you just gave yourself away. And proved you're a liar. You know which day is the seventh day. You just choose not to observe it. You choose not to. It's a willful choice. Every single time you look at the calendar, particularly on Western calendars, the seventh day is the one all the way on the right-hand side, Saturday. Every time you look at the calendar, you condemn yourself. There's not a single place in Scripture ever that we're commanded to worship on any other or to rest on any other day. I know some of y'all will be real particular and say, it doesn't say worship, it says rest. And yes, it is a day of rest, but it's also the day of worship. There's no other day that we're commanded to worship unless it's dealing with the high holy days in the feasts. And those are always midweek days. They're always Wednesday. Always. Check the Zadokite priesthood. You'll see that in Ezekiel chapter 44. They are the ones who will administer the calendar and the sacrifice and the temple when the Messiah returns. It's the Zadokite calendar that will be there. Another topic. I'm just trying to see how many people I can tick off today. I'm doing pretty good. And we're still on verse 12. This is going to be a long one. I also gave my Sabbaths to be a sign between me and them, that they might know that I am Yahweh who sanctifies them. If you don't keep the Sabbath, there is no sign between you and him. That's true in the Torah, and we know that not a single letter will fall from the Torah. I just read from Exodus chapter 31. I just read it. Forever. Twice in 2 verses. And it says it in other places too with regards to the Shabbat. It doesn't say until the cross, until the resurrection, until some new religion forms itself around an idea and a misapplication of Pauline and mostly Pauline writings, opposed to what Yeshua actually did and said, and the apostles, what they did. You won't find a single reference where they are having service on Sunday. It's not there. It's not in Scripture. Anyway, go ahead, bring me Acts chapter 20, verse 7. I'm sure somebody's going to jump on that. You're probably going to run to 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 2 or 3. And you're going to say, see, first day of the week. And if you go read the Greek, it says miaton sabaton. Even a moron who speaks only English understands that sabaton does not mean Sunday. So there you go. In fact, in Acts chapter 20, if you go to verse 16, that does have a phrase that means first day. Hemera proton, or protos hemera, I think is what it is in the Greek. That is first day of the week. It's in the same chapter that Christians derive their false doctrine from, Acts chapter 20, verse 7. Another different topic that we can go into. Wow. But Yahweh's very clear here, and he's going to come back to this. The Shabbat is the sign. It says, but the house of Israel rebelled against me in the wilderness. He is specific. Now, that's not to say that the house of Judah did not also, but as a prophet to the house of Israel, Ezekiel's very specific in who he's speaking to in these passages. This is to the ones who were scattered and have not come home yet, are still scattered into the nations. I contend, and I do this in depth in my book, 10 Parts in the King, but I contend that he scattered the seed of the house of Israel so that it would be assimilated and grow right alongside, and then he will separate the tares out at the end and bring the seed back into his barn. And so I'm happy to agree that much of the house of Israel is sitting in church pews, probably right, well, not today here because it snowed and the roads are icy and all that stuff. But they're sitting in church pews and they have no clue who they are. And they're listening to morons that take passages like this and spiritualize the whole thing and say that, but that doesn't apply to you guys. Y'all are special. You don't have to do those things. God has unequal weights and measures. You can go eat all the pig that you want to. Come on, ham sandwiches on me. It's harlotry. It's idolatry. It's traditions of man masquerading as commandments of God. And the false shepherds will pay, as will those who sit under their shepherding, unfortunately, because they hold the same word that I'm reading right here. I pray that the scales are removed from their eyes. The house of Israel rebelled against me in the wilderness. They did not walk in my statutes and they rejected my ordinances. Kind of like the church today. We don't have to keep those. That was for somebody else. He wasn't serious when he gave those. But wait, Yahweh says, by which if a man observes them, he will live. It brings life and abundantly and blessing and peace. I'm telling you, I give you firsthand experience, every bit of it. Life, blessings, abundance, peace. That's what it says. He will live. And my Sabbaths they greatly profaned. Look, ordinances, statutes, Shabbats. He says, this is what you've got to do to please me. This is not hard. It's actually quite easy, much easier than all of the regulations in church. Man-made traditions, just like the Pharisees. got to wash your hands a certain way or you're not clean. You better not dance. No dancing. You can't have a glass of wine. That's sin. No, it's not. Dancing is fine. Wine is fine. Even strong drink, God commands. Deuteronomy chapter 16, he gives particular times, and he says these are times for where you're supposed to go enjoy everything that you want, and you're to use your tithe money to do it. Church won't tell you that because they got a building fund. Part of the tithe money is supposed to be used to go up to Jerusalem. Part of the tithe money is supposed to be used to celebrate the feasts. Part of the tithe money is to go take care of widows and orphans. Part of the tithe money is to be used for other things. It doesn't all go to the Levites. And even if it does, I don't know any Levites. The entire pastorate is imposter. False teachers. They're not the Levites. They want you to think they are. We replaced them. Well, if you go read 1 Kings chapter 12, as soon as Jeroboam separates the northern kingdom, you know what he does? He assigns his own priesthood and changes the day of worship, or changes the feast days, and changes the place, all of which exactly mirrors what the church did as soon as the apostles were dead. We're going to change. We're going to move it to Rome. We're going to get our own priests, and we're going to keep Christmas and Easter. We're going to take all the pagan stuff we can and pack it into those days, like fertility rites, bunnies, and trees that we can bow down to. And we're going to use all of those pagan emblems that come out of different forms of worship around us so that it's nice and palatable to you people. So Yahweh, see, Israel did the same thing when they came out of Egypt. They brought right along their garbage. They didn't want to listen to what the word actually says, what the living word says and what the written word says. Christendom's exactly the same. Then I resolved to pour out my wrath on them in the wilderness to annihilate them. But I acted for the sake of my name, that I should not be profaned in the sight of the nations before whose sight I had brought them out. Right? This goes back to Moses when Moses said, Yahweh, don't, please. The nations will mock you. And Yahweh relents, right? He was getting ready to destroy all of them and start over with Moses. Moses says, don't do it. But we also know at that same time that I swore to them in the wilderness that I would not bring them into the land which I had given them, flowing with milk and honey, which is the glory of all lands. If you read future prophecy for Israel, it says it will again be the glory of all lands. Nations will flow to it, say, wow, what an amazing place. What an amazing Elohim. Wow, y'all are so blessed. It's not that, there are a lot of people. I want to say it was Samuel Langhorne Clemens. I could be wrong. Who traveled to Israel in the 1860s or 50s or something like that. And he said, this is a God-forsaken desert. Who in hell would want this place? That's not exactly what he said, but that's the paraphrase. Pete Rambo paraphrase. The thing is what we see today. Now, parts of the land are blossoming again. But what we see even today when you go and it's covered in rocks and dry places, and particularly the Negev down south, it's one big desert. Salt water. It's because Yahweh withdrew his blessing. He literally sucked the blessing out of the place. He said, I'm not giving anything until this place is right. But he also promises that he's going to make it right. He will bring his people back. He will restore them to the land, and he will bless the land, and it will be so blessed that the nations will look at it in awe. Let's continue. I swore to them in the wilderness that I would not bring them into the land which I had given them, flowing with milk and honey, which is the glory of all the lands, because they rejected my ordinances. And as for my statutes, they did not walk in them. They even profaned my Shabbats, for their heart continually went after idols. Listen, this is the reason why he didn't bless the land. This is the reason why it's not blessed today. Even the modern state of Israel, and it's primarily parts of the house of Judah. Not even all of Judah is home, and there are many of them that are rejected by the very ones that are there. But I don't want to get off on that tangent, right? But here's the point. They don't even keep this. They do fairly well with the Shabbats, but they reject the ordinances. Many of the ordinances they don't keep. Many of the statutes they don't keep. They've got their own thing. The largest gay pride parade in the world happens in Tel Aviv. Jerusalem now flies gay pride parade flags. It's an abomination. The Father's going to come clean it up. You don't have to worry about that. I don't worry about that side of it because I know he's going to clean that up. I do the best I can to pray for the peace of Jerusalem, to go up when we can, and these parts. Right? To pray for the peace, to pray for the people, pray for restoration among the house of Judah, just like I pray for restoration among the house of Ephraim or the house of Israel or Joseph. All those are AKAs, right? Also known as. Okay. But keeping his ordinances and his statutes and Shabbats brings blessing. Not keeping them profanes them, and it pisses off the Most High. The church continually breaks this stuff right here, constantly. It is, I'm telling you what, it's so good at it that it thinks it's righteousness not to do those things. Oh, my lands. God's word hasn't changed. What you've got is wicked shepherds. Christian theology, Christian doctrine and theology largely is a big, fat lie. Yet my eye spared them rather than destroying them. I did not cause their annihilation in the wilderness. Oh, we're going to get to, he's going to purge the rebels. We're going to get to that part. He said, I said to their children in the wilderness, do not walk in the statutes of your fathers or keep their ordinances or defile yourselves with idols. I am Yahweh. Walk in my statutes and keep my ordinances and observe them. He hasn't changed. His tune has not changed even today. It's the same thing. Go read Malachi chapter 4. Malachi chapter 4 is six verses long. It is eschatology. It is unfulfilled. This is future prophecy. For the Christian Bible, it's the last chapter before you get to the blank white page that Christians have trouble stepping over. But specifically, it talks about the Son of Righteousness with healing in his wings and all the wickedness being trampled like chaff. Those who keep my commandments will rejoice like cows skipping from a stall. Right? All of that. But then you get to verse 4, and Christians, they really have trouble reading that. For whatever reason, the words go blurry, and verse 4, all of a sudden, they can't focus and they can't pronounce and blah, 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 blah. They can't say it. But it says, remember my servant. Let's see. I'm going to read it for you exactly. I want you to hear this verbatim. He says, remember the Torah of Moses, my servant, statutes and ordinances, which I commanded him in Horeb for all Israel. This is eschatology. And remember here means keep and do. It doesn't just mean, oh yeah, I remember reading about that one time. Okay, I remember. No, this is do. And then he says, behold, I'm going to send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and terrible day of the Lord. The day of the Lord hasn't happened yet. And Elijah is one of the ones we still expect. Again, he's been here before. Or to be the spirit of Elijah, right? He was with John the Baptist, but he will be here again. Same idea. And it says, he will restore the hearts of the fathers to their children and the hearts of the children to their fathers, so that I will not come and smite the land with a curse. This isn't you to your daddy. This is you to the fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Yeah. Go read that passage. He says, right here, I am Yahweh your Elohim. Walk in my statutes and keep my ordinances and observe them. Sanctify my Shabbats, and they shall be a sign between me and you, that you may know that I am Yahweh your Elohim. You want to know how he's your Elohim? When you obey him and keep his covenant. It's not saying words or walking the aisle or getting dunked or something like that. Now, yes, I think a profession of faith is important. But having faith in something that you don't obey or someone that you don't obey is not faith. It's not faith. These people who say, oh no, I believe in Jesus, I don't have to do those things. No, you don't believe in Jesus, because if you did, you would do what he said to do. He said, keep my commandments. And they're not burdensome. So my yoke is easy and my burden is light. He's quoting Jeremiah chapter 6, if I remember correctly, 6:16. I will look that up right quick just to verify. You can go read it. But Jeremiah chapter 6, verse 16. Yes, that's where he's quoting from. Stand by the ways and see and ask for the ancient paths where the good way is, and walk in it, and you will find rest for your souls. But they said, we will not walk in it. That's Christendom right there. Verses 16 through 19, that is Christendom. Churchianity, false doctrine people. Jeremiah chapter 6, verses 16 through 19. Go read it, all of it. That's Christendom. D-U-M-B. Normally it's D-O-M. Normally Christendom, the kingdom of Christ. But I'm telling you, those who claim to be Christendom are D-U-M-B for the most part. It's crazy, just crazy. But the children rebelled against me. They did not walk in my statutes. Oh, this sounds like churchianity today. They did not walk in my statutes, nor were they careful to observe my ordinances, by which if a man observes them, he will live. How many times do I have to say this? That's what Yahweh said. How many times do I have to tell you? They profaned my Sabbaths. So I resolved to pour out my wrath on them, to accomplish my anger against them in the wilderness. This is the children of the ones that actually inherited the land. He says they were also disobedient before they left the wilderness. And this is true. Because even after he put them in the land, that's the point at which in Judges, after Joshua dies, the angel of the Lord comes up from Gilgal to Bochim. Read it in Judges chapter 2, verses 1 through 5. And he said, you have not obeyed me. You have not kept my covenant. You have broken my commandments that I gave you. I'm telling you. So Yahweh continues, but I withdrew my hand and acted for the sake of my name, that it should not be profaned in the sight of the nations in whose sight I had brought them out. He doesn't do this for our name's sake. He does it for his name's sake. He has withheld his wrath for his name's sake, but the time is coming. I don't know about y'all, but have you ever been in a situation that's just a pressure cooker? And I know that this has happened at times with people and with my sons at some points, where I just, man, I want to do something, but I'm going to let it ride. I'm going to let it ride. And then it explodes. It's like, what are y'all thinking? He's been letting it ride a long time, and it's going to explode. And it's not just going to be wrath on the nations. It's going to be wrath on his own people to sort out the wicked ones, all the ones that have been warned and chose to, I'm going to cover my eyes and cover my ears and not listen. I can't hear what you're saying. I've had lots of people do that to me. They don't do it that way, but I see that when they do it. I can't hear what you're saying. You're not right. No, I'm reading the word. I'm telling you exactly what the word says right here. I'm not a prophet or the son of a prophet, but I can speak the words of the prophet. I'm telling you, it's coming. This is coming. And all these people that want to come into my chats and say, oh, no, we're exempt from all of that because we got Jesus. You got another thing coming. I withdrew my hand. Let's see. And I swore to them in the wilderness that I would scatter them among the nations and disperse them among the lands. Did he do that? He said, I swore to them I would scatter them among the nations and disperse them among the lands because they had not obeyed my ordinances, but rejected my statutes and had profaned my Shabbats, and their eyes were on the idols of their fathers. Listen to me very carefully. This is for you Christians. If God doesn't judge the church for breaking his statutes and his ordinances, rejecting all of that stuff, breaking the Shabbat, if he doesn't judge them, he's going to have to apologize to the ones that he judged in the wilderness, because he doesn't have unequal weights and measures. He does not have unequal weights and measures. They are an abomination. He says that multiple times in the word. Go look it up. He also says that he has one law for the alien and the native. One law. It's the same. All of mankind will be judged by the Torah. Ordinances, statutes, etc. The blood of Yeshua does bring forgiveness, but forgiveness is valueless unless there is repentance. And repentance demands that you turn and walk the other way. It demands that you begin to walk in his statutes and his ordinances, or you will die in the wilderness right along with the rest of these. It's coming. It is coming. And I'm going to show it to you. It's in this chapter. He says it's coming. It's a promise. Wrath poured out, he says. Stay with me. Says, because they had not. That's a big word right there. That's a really big word. This is the fulcrum. Don't observe the ordinances, reject the statutes, cast out the Sabbaths, and you will be judged. He says, I gave them statutes that were not, he said, I also gave them statutes that were not good and ordinances by which they could not live. This is where stuff gets piled on much later. And I believe that a lot of this is the kind of stuff that he starts piling on through the Pharisees or through the rabbis, through the oral traditions. And the church does the same thing. You're full of it. You can't keep your own commandments. You can't even keep your own commandments. I need forgiveness because I had, whatever. It's the same thing. He gives you bad shepherds who then give you bad commandments that you then can't live by. And it just places you under further judgment. That's what happened right there. I pronounced them unclean because of their gifts, in that they caused all their firstborn to pass through the fire, so that I might make them desolate, in order that they might know that I am Yahweh. Oh, we don't do that. We're the church, man. We ain't never done anything in terms of passing our children through the fire. Man, those Israelites were wicked. But we'll defend a woman's right to choose. Right? There are a lot of churches out there that do that. There are churches now that have open homosexuality in the pulpit. There are churches that have other abominations going on. They put up these trees that they can bow down to, evergreen symbols and wreaths and bows and fertility rite symbols that go back thousands of years. I hang them on the church doors. They put a big old Asherah pole right on top of it, pointing to heaven and the Queen of Heaven. Yeah, church is full of it. I'm telling you what, you start digging into it, you will find that the church is one of the most wicked places on earth. No question. Therefore, Son of Man, speak to the house of Israel and say, thus says Adonai Yahweh, yet in this your fathers have blasphemed me, acting treacherously against me, when I brought them into the land which I swore to give them. Then they saw every high hill and every leafy tree, and they offered there their sacrifices, and they presented the provocation of their offerings. There they also made soothing aroma, and there they poured out their drink offerings. False worship to pagan deities. And I said to them, what is the high place to which you go? So its name is called High Place to this day, Bama. Therefore, say to the house of Israel, thus says Adonai Yahweh, will you defile yourselves after the manner of your fathers and play the harlot after their detestable things? When you offer your gifts, when you cause your sons to pass through the fire, you are defiling yourselves with all your idols to this day. And shall I be inquired of by you, O house of Israel? As I live, declares Adonai Yahweh, I will not be inquired of by you. He says, you have no place in my courts. Who the hell do you think you are coming in here and asking me questions? What makes you think you can talk to me that way? Bunch of wicked individuals. Yeah. He said, what comes into your mind will not come about when you say, we will be like the nations, like the tribes of the land, serving wood and stone. That's what the northern kingdom particularly did. And they continue. Go into any church and you'll find an image of wood up behind the pulpit or mounted on the pulpit. Typically looks like this. Oh, we don't worship that. What, then why do you hang it around your neck? Why do you have it plastered on everything? It's an idol. It's a form of idolatry. Nowhere ever commanded. Oh. But there are lots of others. I mean, you can go into their icons and images and all kinds of other stuff. And then you add to that the pagan practice of watching the sun come up and having a service where watching the sun come up. Oh, you call it something else. But we got to make sure we have all the little eggs and got to make sure that we have the Easter bunny and the fertility rites all attached to it. Yeah, it's pagan. Same thing at Christmas. Same thing at Christmas. Pagan. That's the time of the year that almost all pagan gods are born. Because it's at the same time that you start to notice that the sun's cycle is beginning to grow again. It's no longer depleting. The 21st is where the sun is dead. And then it starts, and by 4 days later, you can tell that the shadows are getting a little bit shorter. Oh, well, the gods are coming back. We get the sun back. It's Mithraism. But the other gods are born that time too. All of them. Every one of them. Go look it up. This is where we really get into the meat that applies to us today. But see, this is where Christianity will either stop reading or they'll say, yeah, this is prophecy for somebody else. Doesn't apply to us. But Yahweh hasn't changed. There is no verse, there is no chapter division. There is no, yes, this is correct. God will restore Israel to her land. If this is to the house of Israel, it hasn't happened yet. The translators are correct here. What they don't bother to tell you is that it's not going to be the Presbyterians or the Baptists or the Methodists or somewhere else. It's going to be Israel. And I've said this so many times. Go read. I've said this too. Go read the New Covenant. Who is the New Covenant with? There's no covenant with the Gentiles. There is no covenant with the Presbyterians or the Baptists or the Methodists or the Episcopalians. The covenant is with the house of Israel and the house of Judah. The new covenant is with the house of Israel and the house of Judah. It's not with anyone else. And some of y'all are going, what? Because you've been told otherwise. It is not with the Gentiles. The Gentiles, the nations, have been seeded with. But once you're grafted into the root of Messiah, you now are part of the commonwealth of Israel. Ephesians chapter 2. No longer are you a stranger and an alien. You've now been brought near. But being brought near now means that you are responsible to the covenant. The new covenant is the Torah written on your heart. If you're not keeping the Torah, you're not in the new covenant. Some of the comments coming on this one, I can see them now. Y'all are going to have a conniption. You're not going to change my mind. You're not going to change mine. And you won't change most other people's minds in here. Because they know what the word says and they don't give a rip about your Christian theology that's false. That says, oh, you're denigrating Jesus. Now you're making him of no value. No, that's not true at all. He's of great value. You just don't understand. You do not understand. As I live, he's going to get pissed off right here. He's going to give you the real deal. Guys, this is future prophecy. This is coming. He says, as I live. Now, is he living or not? He's hanging this. He's hanging all of this on my name's sake and that I am a living Elohim. I am alive. He says, as I live, declares Adonai Yahweh, surely with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm and with wrath poured out, I will be king over you. He's ticked. And he is saying, I'm going to do this and I don't care what it takes. I will do this. And Christendom goes, oh, no. It's just, that doesn't apply to us anymore. We're good. We're safe. No, you're not. You are not safe at all. Judgment is coming. And it's going to begin in the church. And you're going to find yourselves wildly judged. Because you refuse to hear the message that the word says. Every one of you, you've got Bibles. You're accountable for this. You're accountable for every bit of this. It's going to be some scary stuff. I know. Y'all think it's all going to happen to everybody else and to the Jews. But you're safe. We're going to get raptured out of here. Well, surprise, there is no rapture. Not the way you think it. Did a video on that recently too. That stirred up all kinds of fun. It's not there. It's not in Scripture. There is a regathering of Israel to the land, which is what this passage is about as well. But there is no rapture. You don't get a magic elevator ride out of here while everybody else has to suffer. You get to be wicked and then get a ride out of here. God has to apologize to a whole lot of people. He ain't gonna. I got bad news for you. He says, I will bring you out from the peoples. Right? He's talking to the house of Israel. He's not talking to everybody else. I will bring you out from the peoples and gather you from the lands where you are scattered with a mighty hand and with an outstretched arm and wrath poured out. He doesn't say this once. In fact, I'm not sure I've noticed this before, but he says wrath poured out twice right here. He says this twice. Wrath poured out. And part of it is going to be judging on his people, and part of it is going to be wrath on the nations. But he says, I'm going to bring you back. Go read Deuteronomy chapter 30. The first half of Deuteronomy chapter 30 exactly describes this. Leviticus chapter, no, it's not Leviticus. It's not, is it Numbers? Numbers 25. I think it's Numbers 25. I often get these two backwards. No, it might be Leviticus. Let's try Leviticus 25. No, I was right. Numbers 25. I don't know why I have trouble with that particular one. Okay, guys. I haven't done this in a while, trying to find something. I was just referring to this the other day, and now I can't seem to. So it's not there. It's got to be over here. I'm sorry. It's Leviticus 26. Leviticus 26. One of those passages that deals specifically with this very stuff right here and the restoration. But specifically talking about how when you don't repent, he will, and he says, because you reject my statutes and you abhor my ordinances so as not to carry them out, my commandments so as to break covenant. He says, I'll reject you. Leviticus, that's 26, verse 14, okay? But you need to read the whole thing. So on and so forth. But down at the end of that chapter, verse 40 and following, it says, if they confess their iniquity and the iniquity of their forefathers in their unfaithfulness, which they committed against me, and also in acting with hostility against me, I was acting with hostility against them to bring them into the land of their enemies, or if their uncircumcised heart becomes humbled, so that they then make amends for their iniquity. Then I will remember my covenant with Jacob, and I will remember my covenant with Isaac, and my covenant with Abraham as well, and I will remember the land. For the land will be abandoned by them, and will make up for its Shabbats while it is made desolate without them. They, meanwhile, will be making amends for their iniquity because they rejected my ordinances and their soul abhorred my statutes. Man, that is the church. The church hates. I'm telling you what, I've watched fire and venom come out of pastors' mouths and eyes when we get into this discussion. They hate this discussion. I've talked to so many Christians, from family members to people that I just bump into and have this conversation with. They hate the statutes and the ordinances. And they hate the God who gave them. They claim otherwise, but they hate it. They abhor it. Continuing in verse 44. This is Leviticus chapter 26, verse 44. Yet in spite of this, when they are in the land of their enemies, I will not reject them, nor will I so abhor them as to destroy them, breaking my covenant with them, for I am Yahweh their Elohim. He still protects and provides to a degree, because they'll say, oh, God is with us. Well, not the way he wants to be, because you stink. He says, but I will remember for them the covenant with their ancestors, whom I brought out of the land of Mitzrayim in the sight of the nations, that I might be their Elohim. I am Yahweh. He hasn't changed. He doesn't change. He will not change. His statutes and his ordinances are front and center from beginning to end. I will bring you into the wilderness of the people, and there I will enter into judgment with you face to face. This is what he says. This is what he says. He says in the latter days, when it's time, right? If you read this, we go back and run through this again. He says, I'm going to gather you and I'm going to bring you into the wilderness. He says, the wilderness of the peoples. So I'm going to bring you into the wilderness again. And there are multiple places in scripture that it talks about this regathering and this judgment. We're going back to the wilderness. We are going to walk the same paths that our fathers walked. May not be in exactly the same place, but he's going to walk us on the same paths, and we're going to receive the same tests, and many are going to fail, and they will not enter the land. But he says, I will bring you into the wilderness of the people, and there I will enter into judgment with you face to face. You want to be terrified? There you are. The first time you meet the Messiah may be standing in the wilderness, and it's not going to be a pleasant meeting. It's not. This is not going to be happy time. He says, as I enter into judgment with your fathers in the wilderness in the land of Mitzrayim, so I will enter into judgment with you. He says, you see that? That's the pattern. You see what I did to them? That's what I'm going to do to you. And everybody says, oh no, we got Jesus. We don't have to worry about that. That's for somebody else. No, it's not. No, it's not. This is the house of Israel and the house of Judah, those who are in the new covenant. Yeah, that's exactly what this is. You can't change definitions. You can't hide from this stuff. When you read large passages in context, you can't hide from it. And Christianity or churchianity wants to change everything in this passage so that it fits somebody else. They'll spiritualize everything. We just read all the literal part in the first half, and now they're going to change the definitions of everything so that it doesn't mean them, but it does. He says, as I enter into judgment with your fathers in the wilderness of the land of Mitzrayim, so I will enter into judgment with you, declares Adonai Yahweh. I will make you pass under the rod, and I will bring you into the bond of the covenant. And I will purge from you the rebels who transgress against me. The covenant, the Torah. And the rebels are those who don't keep it. I will bring them out of the land where they sojourn. Here's your rapture. He's going to gather you right out of the church, and he's going to bring you into the wilderness, and he's going to say, why aren't you keeping Passover? Why aren't you keeping Shabbat? Oh, we don't have to do that. No, you need to rethink that right now. Nah, we don't have to do that. We got Jesus. Okay, there's the exit. You're not my people. You are not my people. He says, I will cause you to pass under the rod. What does that mean? Well, when a shepherd is bringing his sheep into or out of the pen, out of the fold, he's going to hold the rod down and watch as they go under the rod into the fold. And if he needs to steer one out that isn't his, doesn't belong, is unclean, or whatever purpose, that one's sickly, he can just take the rod and just kind of steer it out away from the door, and the next one comes in. And that's how he counts them. And that's also by passing under the rod, he's right there where he can steer that away. That one doesn't belong. That one's not mine. Nope, not here. Not today, cowboy. You're out. Bye. Take it somewhere else. You can go to the wolves. You don't belong here. This is not my sheep. So I will cause you to pass under, and I will bring you into the bond of the covenant. All you guys that say, oh, the covenant is a burden. No, he says over and over that it's freedom, and my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. It says that in Jeremiah, where the good way is. It says that in Psalms. The law of liberty says that in Deuteronomy. It's not too difficult. It's very near you. It's in your heart and in your mouth. You don't have to go somewhere else and say, where is it? No, you've got it. It's all right there. It's all right here in the Word. But he says, I will purge the rebels from you, the rebels and those who transgress against me. I will bring them out of the land where they sojourn, but they will not enter the land of Israel. Thus you will know that I am Yahweh. He says right here, he's hanging his name on it. He's saying, this is how you're going to know. Because I'm going to do this. And if I don't do it, I'm not Yahweh. I am not the Most High. That's what he's saying. As for you, O house of Israel. So he continues here. He has pronounced this judgment on them. It's a glorious promise for those of us who keep the covenant. It's like, yes, please bring us back. We want to go back. I'm fearful for it from the perspective that I know I'm not perfect, but I do have a Messiah. But I do everything I can to be obedient. I am not willfully rebellious as these who will not enter the land, that are willfully rebellious. They read the word and they say, nah, we don't have to do that. That's all been done away with. Wickedness. So now he's going to change his tone just a little bit. And he's going to say, but you house of Israel, thus says Adonai Yahweh. Ezekiel's speaking to the house of Israel. He says, this is what he says. Go serve everyone his idols, but later you will surely listen to me. And my holy name you will profane no longer with your gifts and your idols. He knows they're going to go be wicked. He says, you come inquire of me. You're not going to inquire of me. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen, though. You're going to die in your wickedness. But somewhere down the line, there's going to be a generation that I will call back. And then even that generation, I'm going to have to purge the rebels out. But the other ones, they're going to be obedient. They're going to be keeping the commandments. They're going to be walking in the covenant. And they'll be worthy of having a king that is the good shepherd. Yeah. He says, later you will surely listen to me, right? Right? Says, for on my holy mountain, where's that? That's Jerusalem, on the high mountain of Israel, declares Yahweh. There the whole house of Israel, all of them will serve me in the land. There I will accept them, and there I will seek your contributions and the choicest of your gifts with all your holy things. This is the temple. This is the return of the temple. And if you keep reading Ezekiel, you find out chapters 40 through 45 or 6, all of that is about temple and the future worship. And the fact that the Messiah will be overseeing the sacrifice, even the fat and the blood brought by the Zadokite priesthood. Ooh, the Christians just went sideways on that one. But it's all there. It's written right there. It's future prophecy, every bit of it. It's coming. I know. Some of y'all, no, sacrifice has been done away with. No. The Torah demands sacrifice. Doesn't mean I believe that all sacrifice points to the Messiah, but it will still cost something. There will still be peace offerings. There will still be fellowship offerings. There will still be ascending smoke. The Father loves a good barbecue. Yeah. It's all still going to be there. I've talked about this before. There will be sacrifices in the future. Christendom hates that too. But that's what his word says. You'll sit there, stand around the grill and have a debate about whether or not these things will happen, but you're standing right there burning meat, right? That to me is just moronic. That is just asinine. No, we're not going to have sacrifice. Man, this steak is so good. My coffee's getting cold. This room's a little chilly now. Might be time to start cooling down, right? We got a little bit more to go here. He says, with all your holy things, as a soothing aroma. Listen, a soothing aroma, that is sacrifice. He says it right here. As a soothing aroma, I will accept you when I bring you out from the peoples and gather you from the lands where you are scattered, and I will prove myself holy among you in the sight of the nations. This is how the nations are going to know. And holy, it means set apart. I'll prove myself set apart. Right? We use that word, Christianity uses the word holy all the time, but they don't understand what it means. It means set apart. It means not like the world. But churchianity wants to be as, what do they call this? Culturally sensitive, as, they got this whole social gospel thing. We got to look like the world, man. We need churches with big bands and light shows and flying people through the air. It's wickedness. He said, I'll prove myself holy. You want to be set apart? Do what the set apart Elohim does. Get on his calendar, Leviticus 23. Do what he says to do, Shabbat. Yeah. You will know that I am Yahweh when I bring you into the land of Israel, into the land which I swore to give to your forefathers. We will return. That is the goal. We were created to live on earth. We're not flying off to some ethereal place. We will be returned to the land, and we will grow and prosper there. That's where the New Jerusalem comes down, eventually, at the end of the millennial reign. But his people will rule and reign from that land. You will know that I am Yahweh when I bring you into the land of Israel. It doesn't say bring us into some other land. I could get on a tangent here too. There you will remember your ways and all your deeds with which you have defiled yourselves, and you will loathe yourselves in the sight of all the evil things that you have done. Or for your own sight, in your own sight, for all the evil things. Here's the point. Most of Christendom doesn't even realize they're doing evil things. So they're a long way from coming to a place of loathing that. I look back on some of the stuff that I did. I can remember being in the pulpit and doing Advent wreaths and doing, having the Christmas trees. And I can remember, the Easter hams. And I can remember just doing all the Sunday stuff. And later on, when I started really reading the word and understanding what the word says, I realized how utterly wicked I was. And still am. I'm not cleaned up. We continue to walk in the right direction, right? We long for the day. When we're back in the land, when we can observe these things together with the people, all of our brothers and sisters around the world, mishpachah, from the tribes, the clans, the families. Something I have not talked about here that I really need to for 2 seconds. We do have coming up in July, we have the Kingdom Restoration Conference. And the Kingdom Restoration Conference is gathering of those who understand this or who desire to understand it. Now, we're primarily going to be talking about strengthening and building families. We're talking about headship and patriarchy are high on the list, but we will also be talking about just basic keeping Torah. Just basic walking in obedience. What does that look like? And it's a chance to meet others who are doing the same thing. Okay. It's a chance to fellowship with others who are walking in his path. Okay. And seeking to be obedient to his covenant, to his commandments. The Kingdom Restoration Conference. The early bird registration ends February the 1st. And then after that, it's going to be a little bit more registration, but the registration covers your family, to attend the conference, and it covers one lunch and one dinner. We do have a coat and tie dinner that we'll have one evening during the conference for husband and wife, husband and wife, or husband and wives, what have you, but you do have to purchase the additional meals for that. Got Shabbat service together. We've got worship team that we're real excited about coming out of Nashville. Super excited about the whole thing. And it's going to be fantastic. You definitely don't want to miss it. We've got some great speakers, but go to that website. You can check that out. Go to the website there, Kingdom Restoration Conference, or Kingdom Restoration Conf, CONF.com. And you can get all the details and the schedule of events and location and all these sorts of things. Second annual. And our prayer is to grow each year more and more and connect more and more families who have a full understanding, not just of Shabbat and or the feasts, but also understand what it means to have your family rightly ordered, proper headship and patriarchy, right? And so come join us. We'd love to have you. But right here, it says there, when we're back in the land, you will remember your ways and all your deeds which you defiled yourself, and you will loathe yourselves. Then you will know that I am Yahweh, who have dealt with you for my name's sake. This is why he's doing it. He's not doing it because we're special. He's not doing it for any other reason. He's doing it because he made promises in his name to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and he will fulfill those promises. He will uphold his side of the covenant even when we are unfaithful. But he's not going to bring rebels into the kingdom. He's going to purge them out. Then you will know that I am Yahweh when I have dealt with you for my name's sake, not according to your evil ways or according to your corrupt deeds, O house of Israel, declares Adonai Yahweh. And then there's a little bit of a shift right here towards the end. This is the end of the chapter, so we're getting close to being able to wrap this up. But he says, now the word of Yahweh came to me saying. So I want to cover the whole chapter, but I think right there is the end of that segment. But there's something interesting that he says here. It says, now the word of Yahweh came to me saying, and I want to point this out too. Every time I see this, the word of Yahweh came to me. When we understand the Memra Yah, the word of Yahweh, the angel of the Lord, I wonder how many times this is a physical manifestation that comes to the prophets. Is this Yeshua coming to the prophets? It's like I see that with Jonah. You read the beginning of Jonah. It says, now the word of the Lord came to Jonah saying. And I wonder, was Jonah in his study, where he's sitting at a desk, or he's sitting in the, there's a tap on the door and then somebody walks through the door and there's Yeshua? The angel of the Lord, or the word of the Lord, the word made flesh. And he's standing there and he says, I want you to go down to Nineveh. And it says that Jonah fled from the presence of the word of the Lord. That's a fascinating line to me. Was he like, oh, hell no, I'm not doing that. I hate Nineveh. I'm going to Tarshish, or wherever it was he took off to. I think that's what it was. Jumps on a ship and heads out, and he's like, did he have a personal meeting with Yeshua? I think so in some of those cases. Can't prove it, but I think so. So when the word of the Lord comes to, is Ezekiel just sitting there and all of a sudden he has this word pop into his mind, or does the word come and sit down and say, hey, son of man, I want you to set your face toward Teman and speak out against the south and prophesy against the forest land of the Negev. The Negev has forest land? Are you kidding me? Not today. It doesn't. Never. It doesn't look like it's had forest land in a long time. There are no stumps. There's nothing there. It's devastation. There are greenhouses and places that it's watered in order to, but that's not good. There are no forests that I know of down in the Negev. Every time I've driven down that way, down past Masada, down past the Red Sea, way down. I've never been as far as Eilat, so maybe there's something way down there. I do want to visit Eilat one of these trips to Israel, because I want to go snorkeling in in the Red Sea there. He says, set your face, prophesy against the south, and prophesy against the forest land of the Negev, and say to the forest of the Negev, hear the word of Yahweh. Thus says Adonai Yahweh, behold, I'm about to kindle a fire in you, and it will consume you. Consume every green tree in you as well as every dry tree. The blazing flame will not be quenched, and the whole surface from the north to the south will be burned by it. All flesh will see that I, Yahweh, have kindled it. It shall not be quenched. And I'm assuming, I don't know that this must have happened at some point. One of the armies that came through just burned everything, right? Maybe it recovered, maybe it didn't. But I'm assuming that this is probably a short-term sign that Yahweh gave to Ezekiel to tell the people. And then later, a year or two or three later, when it happened, they said, Ezekiel told us this a couple of years ago, and this is true. And every bit of it was gone, right? But what we don't have, that to my knowledge, is a reference that comes along and says, or gives us exactly when it happened. Because this, if that much land mass was ablaze, it must have been spectacular, right? But here's the verse that I want to leave you with. Ezekiel then says, Lord God, they are saying of me, is he just speaking parables? The house of Israel, the elders of the house of Israel at that time didn't believe him. And the elders and the pastors and the Christians and the churchianity peeps sitting in the pews don't believe him today. They don't. He's just speaking parables. He's not really telling us, we can spiritualize this and parse out the pieces that we like. The rest of it we can throw away. No, this is literal. You can take this passage, you can take this chapter literally. Just as he described in the first half of it what he did to Egypt and what he did to the house of Israel coming out of Egypt, we know historically, we have lots of witnesses, exactly what happened. Exactly the same thing is going to happen with the latter part of this, that is prophecy. It is not parable. This is not parable. I'm telling you, this is coming. Every bit of this is coming. And so that's Ezekiel chapter 20. And we read this yesterday as part of our Torah. We were reading some Torah stuff, and it jogged memories, and it's fun because we head back and we connect all these different passages of scripture. So I was just sitting with the ladies, right? I just had my ladies for Shabbat. It was just us. And we spent time in Ezekiel chapter 20 as well as other places. And I had already been thinking, I need to do a video on Ezekiel chapter 20. Because this is a whole chapter that Christianity just chucks out. That's not going to happen. That's already happened. He's writing that to somebody else. That's not to us. But it is. And you're accountable for it, particularly if you sat through this video. All right, guys. For King and Kingdom, I bid you shalom.